This week, a new presidential administration is starting in the United States, and that has massive implications for the crypto market. In 7 years of investing in crypto, I've never seen this much buzz surrounding upcoming policy changes. In this video, we're going to break down what we know so far about the Trump administration's crypto policies and what that means for the crypto market. Now let's get into it. Now, in the past year, a ton of different policies have been thrown around, many only once or twice, but in this video, we're going to focus on the top policies or changes in Washington that seem to have gained traction going into the first week of the new administration. The first of these is the change in SEC leadership. The current SEC leadership and SEC in general have been notoriously anti-crypto, issuing Wells notices, filing suits against many of the most legitimate best companies in the industry. Second is the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve where the United States would purchase and hold Bitcoin. Third is the end of Operation Chokepoint 2.0. This was a concerted effort to debank crypto founders and crypto companies, which is coming to an end, and there's an investigation already ongoing in the Senate into exactly what happened there. Fourth is the change in crypto accounting rules for banks, where currently they're required to list digital assets as liabilities if they hold any. And then fifth is the general friendly stance to crypto and some miscellaneous things that entails, such as an expected executive order, as well as the establishment of a crypto policy council. And we're going to talk about what each of these policies mean for the market and potentially which sectors of crypto benefit from each of them. All right, so let's talk about the SEC leadership change first. Trump has nominated cryptocurrency advocate Paul Atkins as SEC chair. Atkins is the CEO of Potomac Partners and a former SEC commissioner. And general consensus in the crypto market is that he is a friend of the industry. He's spoken at crypto conferences in the past, and the chief legal officer of Coinbase congratulated him, saying, "We appreciate his commitment to balance and regulating U.S. securities markets and look forward to his fresh leadership at the SEC. Going on, it's sorely needed and cannot come a day too soon." Here's another article saying that Trump's new SEC leadership poised to kickstart crypto overhaul. And many are expecting this to happen sooner than later, although, of course, time will tell. But Gary Gensler, the current SEC chair, is stepping down on January 20th. And what this means is that the current SEC commission, you have the chair plus the 4 commissioners, is split 3-2 in favor of Democrats. Once Gary Gensler steps down and is replaced with Paul Atkins, that balance will flip to be 3-2 in favor of Republicans. And I think the key part of this, the thing to notice, is that the SEC doesn't necessarily need to do anything except hopefully approve additional crypto ETFs, looking at a hopeful Solana ETF. But what they need to do is stop doing things. And so, for example, this is a tweet from Hayden Adams, the founder of Uniswap Labs, saying that Uniswap Labs had received a Wells notice from the SEC. Now, if you're not familiar with Uniswap, it is the largest decentralized exchange in crypto, which allows you to swap assets directly from your wallet. It's a pioneer in the space of DeFi, and I would consider it to be one of the most used, most reputable, in fact, most innovative startups in the industry. So you have a American founded startup that is pioneering in a new industry, and then they're getting sued by the SEC. I mean, it's honestly just completely absurd. You see here, they're based in New York City, and if you want these sorts of startups to be based in the US and want them to be able to innovate, you can't do this sort of thing against them. And so what I think is really exciting about this is that these startups like Uniswap, as well as other smaller startups that don't have the same platform as Uniswap, they're going to have a lot more freedom to innovate. They won't have to worry about whether some new type of product they launch is going to lead to an SEC suit. And second, what it means is that these startups, these builders, can actually focus on building. They don't have to focus on legal action that diverts tons of resources. And as far as who benefits the most from this, I would pinpoint 2 groups. The first is any crypto protocol or company that has been sued by the SEC in the past. Although there are some bad actors in crypto, that goes without saying, the large majority of the ones that have been sued or have been called securities in other suits, they're not securities, and they haven't done anything wrong except try to build in a new industry. And so any token or product whose price has been dampened by that, I would expect them to do well. And I think that's part of the reason why you see, for example, XRP has done very well recently, since they were famously sued for issuing unlicensed securities by the SEC. The second group, I would say, is specifically the DeFi sector. Although it's well established at this point that Ethereum, Bitcoin are not securities, that's why they're allowed to have ETFs, it's much more up in the air whether governance tokens for DeFi protocols are securities or not. And by up in the air, I mean we don't have regulatory clarity on it. I would expect that we get regulatory clarity in the next few years about what makes a governance protocol a security versus not a security. That way, protocols can actually start to hopefully add value accrual to their tokens under certain conditions, and the governance tokens don't need to have that hanging over the head of their valuations going into the future. The second initiative I want to talk about is the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the United States. What this would mean would be that the United States government would start to purchase and hold Bitcoin. Countries often have strategic gold reserves, strategic oil reserves. This would be the same thing, but for Bitcoin. And the idea being that Bitcoin is now one of the largest assets in the world by market capitalization, multi-trillion-dollar commodity, and a growing way for people, companies, even countries to hold and store the value. And so what this is saying is the United States wants to make sure it has some stake in that, especially if Bitcoin eventually starts to compete with other major stores of value, such as gold in the future. And this has actually been gaining a lot of traction going into the first week of the new administration. Let's look at some of that. Here is this tweet from Swan saying the New York Times is reporting real political momentum behind Trump to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve on day one. I don't know if it's going to happen on day one. There's probably other priorities, but that would be great, right? And this speaks to the priority of it. More on that later. Here you have a tweet from Senator Cynthia Lummis, the U.S. Senator from Wyoming, tweeting out, working hard to get the strategic Bitcoin reserve and comprehensive digital asset legislation across the finish line. Thanks for stopping by. And then she lists several people from the Kraken team, including Kraken co-founder Jesse Powell. So here you have a situation where a sitting U.S. Senator is making it her mission, her priority to get this strategic Bitcoin reserve going, and is meeting with leaders in the industry. If we look at the betting markets on this, we can see that there's currently a 57% chance on Polymarket of a U.S. national Bitcoin reserve in 2025. And you actually have a 42% chance in the first 100 days that this happens. And these odds have been increasing recently. And here's some more momentum going into the final days. We have Coinbase endorsing the creation of a U.S. government strategic Bitcoin reserve. I didn't realize it was a question of whether or not Coinbase endorsed that. Dynamo DeFi also endorses that, as does everyone else who works in this industry and sees to have the value of everything they do go up. But appreciate that endorsement by Coinbase. And then here to talk about the implications of this, here is a clip from Mike Novogratz back in November when this idea was being floated. And what he predicted is that if this happened, if the United States established a strategic Bitcoin reserve, then what it would do is it would spark other nations as well, other institutions, to FOMO into Bitcoin. So I don't want to say it's the last cycle, but it's almost like the ultimate cycle where instead of having individuals or even companies FOMOing, you would have countries FOMOing in. And he predicted that this would push Bitcoin up to $500,000 per Bitcoin. That would be great. And I expect that although Bitcoin would reap most of the benefits from that, like it has from ETFs, naturally that would trickle down to the rest of the crypto market, as it always does. The third thing the crypto industry can look forward to is the end of Operation Chokepoint 2.0. What Operation Chokepoint 2.0 was a concerted effort by the FDIC and other financial regulators to debank the crypto industry, debank crypto companies, and debank even crypto founders. And this stretched across a number of financial regulators. Here you have in this article the Fed, the FDIC, the OCC, and the DOJ listed among others. And the result has been that a lot of good companies, good founders, suddenly found themselves kicked out of banks. Here is Sam Kazemian, the founder of Frax. We've interviewed him on this channel before. It's one of the largest projects in DeFi. He was kicked out of his bank. He says he had a close relationship with his banker and got a call saying that his account was closed because his primary source of income or wealth was crypto. And you guys have to realize what this does to the industry, right? What kind of top tier founder actually wants to go into something when they can lose their bank account? And I consider Sam to be a top tier founder. So congratulations and thank you to him for sticking with it. But I think that that's really hurt the inflow of talent, the inflow of developers, inflow of founders into the industry over the past few years. Not to mention the fact that, like the SEC lawsuits, it makes it almost impossible to do business. I mean, I'll say even, I'm not going to claim that I was debanked, but I did have a tough time setting up a bank account even for this YouTube channel because it's called Dynamo DeFi. And when banks see that it has DeFi in the name, they ask, do you do anything related to crypto? And I truthfully, honestly say yes. And then they say, okay, then look for another bank. And I had to go through a few before I found one I could work with. And the investigations into OCP 2.0 are already ongoing. Senator Lummis, thank you, Senator Lummis, same one as from the Bitcoin Reserve earlier, has been contacted by FDIC whistleblowers and has demanded preservation of all materials, including those related to the Silvergate and Signature Bank shutdowns, threatening criminal referrals if any destruction of records is unearthed. So you have a day of reckoning coming for the people who tried to kick the crypto industry off of banks. I hope that in the future we don't need banks at all because crypto is able to create a better solution. But in the current day, you still need banks to pay things, especially taxes. And so that's one more boot off the neck of the crypto industry that's going to allow people to do business. And as far as who benefits from this, I would say the biggest beneficiary is US-based cryptos. So most cryptos are international, worldwide, because it's an industry that is birthed on the internet and is very favorable towards remote work. But there are foundations, there are protocols that have offices or are headquartered in the United States. There's founders that are based in the United States. And I would expect that those companies are going to massively benefit from this because they don't need to worry about being debanked anymore. They don't need to worry about the SEC suits as much. And they're now free to expand. And I think there's going to be an inflow of talent into the industry because people no longer have to worry about this sort of regulatory overreach. The fourth policy that I want to highlight is an expected executive order that's going to repeal the policy requiring banks to list digital assets as liabilities. Here is a report from Watcher Guru via Washington Post, and this is expected to be part of an executive order on day number 1. The Daily Huddle reports that this executive order would reverse the Staff Accounting Bulletin of 121, an SEC guideline that requires certain financial entities to list even the crypto assets they hold on behalf of customers as liabilities. And what this does is this guideline, it discourages banks or any financial institutions from custodying crypto because if they custodied a lot of it, then it would make their financial health look worse than it was, because even though they're holding assets on behalf of people, that asset is being counted as a liability. And then more broadly, there's an expectation that the approach of the US federal government to crypto will change fundamentally this week. There's an expectation right now with 38% chance that Trump will issue an executive order related to cryptocurrency on day 1. And sources familiar with it, again, these are sources and sources can be inaccurate, but sources are saying that it would instruct regulatory agencies to work with the industry and create a crypto council to represent the industry. So contrast this with where we've been the past few years. You had founders getting debanked, founders getting sued by the SEC. Instead, you're going to have a crypto council to represent the industry and regulatory agencies that are taking another look at how they regulate crypto and what their rules are. And so, like the other things we mentioned earlier, the benefit of this is US-based companies, as well as especially sectors of crypto that have had a lack of regulatory clarity and a need for regulatory clarity. And I would say that anything related to financial services, which is much of crypto, like DeFi, like real world assets, those are going to benefit tremendously from being able to actually work with regulators to come up with a framework that works for them and works for the country. And then one other potential beneficiary of this, and this one I didn't include as one of the main policy points because it's mostly been rumors, but it wouldn't shock me if there was some special focus put on US-based coins. This was a report from the New York Post that there was a potential US altcoin reserve that would include US-based coins like Solana and XRP, and they even mentioned USDC. I don't fully understand the value of holding a stablecoin in a strategic reserve, but I'm not writing the article, right? But that being said, I consider this to be less likely. However, I think that there is a kernel of truth here, and the kernel of truth is that it wouldn't shock me if this crypto council, if these regulators who are trying to work with the crypto industry end up in some way trying to prioritize or support US-based coins. And like we mentioned before, I think that they could be an outsized beneficiary of these changes. If you want to learn more about the crypto market, how to research it, how to think about it, as well as the latest news, be sure to check out my newsletter, newsletter.dynamodefi.com. Every Monday we send this out. I think it's the best Monday newsletter in crypto, and it's got on-chain analysis, readings, and more to keep you updated. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.